Welcome to the Get Sellers Calling You podcast for Christian real estate agents, where we help you grow your business with some great marketing tips and grow your faith with some powerful, radical faith Bible teachings. I'm Peter Carmichael, and I'm glad you joined us. Today, we're going to be talking about growing your business with some great marketing tips. But first, I'd like you to hear from one of our Agent Dominator clients.
I've been selling real estate in my local market for over 37 years, and my personal volume is typically around 20 to 22 million. When we first started, we did geographic mailings, and they were to areas that I had not mailed to previously. And the success rate, I got a listing my first month. As a matter of fact, 2 listings within the first 2 months. And that's not typical, but once we started, it just continued to be successful. And my personal goal for the mailings was 6 figures, and we did achieve that the first year. And from there, we moved on to a geographic farm area of less than 1,000 homes. As a matter of fact, 971. And we've done 6 figures out of there every single year that you've helped us farm that.
Learn how Agent Dominator services can help you grow your business and get more listings. Visit us at agentdominator.com. And now, let's get started on the podcast. Okay, so welcome back, everyone. This is Peter Carmichael, if you don't recognize the voice yet, especially for our new newcomers. We're on another session of Get Sellers Calling You, Realtor Podcast. And I have a good friend of mine that is actually my brother. I don't know if you knew that, but I actually have a number of brothers in real estate. We're kind of laughing because we know where that goes. But this is Peter Fife from Prescott, Arizona. And he's got an incredibly strong business, consistently strong, and a great story. And I wanted to just have you hear from him what goes on in his life and how you can mirror what he does. So, Peter, how are you doing?
Good, Beatty. Good to talk to you. Your brother in Christ.
Yeah, that's right. Brother in Christ.
There's no resemblance, except for the beautiful hair.
That's
right.
We
do have that resemblance.
And for those that are just listening to us by audio, yeah, we both have very, very few hair follicles up top.
Yeah.
So
it's a sign of a thinker and
a thinker and something else, but we won't go there.
the brain's gotten so big, it's just pushed it all out.
That is exactly it. The Lord chose some heads to be beautiful, and then he covered the other ones with hair. So,
exactly. I like that one. Yeah.
Just as a reminder for those who are listening in, if you have not subscribed, please press the subscribe button. If you want to watch this video, it's actually a video, so you can go back to our site, getsellerscallingyou.com. You can actually see who is talking on this. And one final reminder, we've just started a Facebook group to simply enhance the dialogue between agents on discussing getting sellers and those type of things. It's called, of all things, Get Sellers Calling You. So please look us up and join the group if you have interest. Peter, before we get into real estate, I'd like to just understand, just tell us a little bit about you. What's your background? How did you get to, what led you into real estate, and just whatever starts from there?
Well, real estate runs deep in my family. So my dad's been a realtor my whole life.
Okay.
And he's passed away a couple years ago at age 90. But my whole life he was in real estate. My grandmother in Switzerland, she did real estate for 40 plus years.
Oh, wow.
And didn't stop until she died at 85, 86. So I've always seen real estate as a way to provide for my family. And so I've been doing it since I was 23.
Wow. So no real story behind the real estate other than that's how you grew up. I love it.
Yeah.
What is your, just to kind of get to know you a little bit more, this could be personal, within business, without business. What would you say has been maybe your biggest failure, and what did you learn from it?
Biggest failure? What could I learn from it?
If you consider anything a failure. Sometimes you don't.
Well, see, I don't think there's any,
That's why I say that.
There's called PhDs in real estate, pretty
Yeah.
hard deals.
Yeah.
And if we don't learn from our mistakes, they become pretty hard deals. But if we learn from them, they turn into a PhD, where we become educated. I've only bought one fridge in my career, but my theory in real estate is, if I make the mistake, I'll eat it.
Yes.
But it keeps me from making a lot of mistakes, and I learn from my mistakes that way. And also it gets good comeback customers. So
then let me rephrase my question. What is the biggest PhD that you've experienced, and what did you learn from that?
I remember when I was poor and struggling, and early on, I remember I forgot to look at the box where it says, there's a box in Arizona that you check that says fridge included. And we got to close of escrow, and my sellers had taken the fridge, and the buyer's agent calls me, he says, "Where's the fridge?" And I said, "What fridge?" He said, "The fridge on the contract." And I said, "What fridge on the contract?" "Oh, what fridge would you like?" and that was a hard deal. And I went, okay, I'm always going to look at that one. But, and didn't even tell my sellers, because it was my mistake. I just said, well, I'll buy the fridge. But there's, what else? You just have regular stuff that comes up all the time that it's just normal, and it's not really a mistake. It's working through personalities, and working with people. Totally. I can't think of a big mistake I've made that really, oh, gee, know.
Well, I love the PhD approach.
I'll tell you a big mistake I almost made.
Okay.
How about that one?
All right, perfect.
Okay. So in 2005, I owned about 9 properties and was really leveraged hard, because I owned a lot of rental properties. And things were happening in the nation, and my wife was inspired, and she said, "What would it take for us to get out of debt?" And I said, "We had to sell it all. If we sold," they said, "if we sold it all, we get out of debt." And I said, "We'd be like 50,000 off." And she said, "Sell everything." And I'm like, "Sell everything? That's crazy." Because this is before 2007 happened, and the big crash. This is before we've ever seen real estate do this. And I was, I knew more than my wife.
Right.
Because I've been in real estate a long time, and she was getting this inspiration, and I wasn't humble enough to listen to her. And so she kept telling me, you need to pray about it. I'm like, okay, fine. So I was very hesitant, because I didn't want to, I was going to be rich, by darn it. I was going to do really well, and I knew better. And so finally I humbled myself and prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said, "Yeah, sell it all. You need to sell it all." And I was like, "You gotta be kidding me. I mean, this doesn't make any sense." So I sold everything in 2005, 6. And then we know what happened in 6 and 7. Everything just crashed. And I was like, oh boy, that was good. I sold everything, because I couldn't afford. I mean, my income dropped by 80%,
Wow.
Yeah. In that first year, 2007, 8. But because I had sold everything and had no debt to next to near debt, no debt, I was able to survive and be okay and have enough to make it through that valley to where I could, not have to grab for my savings anymore and be okay. And that's the only thing that allowed me to have staying power, but I almost didn't listen, so yeah. But, I love that. And that also led to me getting up here to Prescott, which is the greatest blessing in our life, because had I not done that, I wouldn't have been in a financial position where I could move up here and start all over again in 2008, which was another story of faith that we'll have to get into.
I definitely want to get into that. So, in fact, Paul, we're in that direction. So let's, I have to tell you this story, and I can't remember if I have said this on any of my other podcasts. I remember I was in a business group many years back, and we would bring in a top speaker every month to come and teach our group. It's like a group of 15 or 18 men and women. And they're usually, glittering with Rolex watches and expensive suits. And they're multi-millionaires from their businesses, and they're going to teach us these business things. So I kind of got accustomed to that. And then I came in this one day, and this guy's just wearing sort of like a turtleneck, black shirt and black pants, no jacket, no fancy watch. My watch was fancier than his, just normal shoes. And this was my thought. And for any of our listeners out there, before you say, am I going to get anything from this call? My thought was, oh, what am I going to learn from this joker? Okay, that was my attitude. I was real prideful. And then the moderator said, I'd like to introduce this person. Is so-and-so. He's from Texas. He was here yesterday for our other group, but he had to fly back on his private jet to make a tee time on golf. And I'm thinking, oh, maybe I misgauged this guy. And then he said he owns 4 businesses. I'm thinking, okay, jack of many, master of none. And they do a combined revenue of $1 billion. And I got put in my place. Okay, so don't judge a book by its cover, right? So we're not judging you by your cover, but just to kind of titillate a little bit where this is going, would you mind if I ask you what type of personal transactional volume do you do today as a real estate agent?
I do between 24 and 28 million a year, between 50 and 70 transactions. And I've done that consistently for 25 of my 27 years. There's only 2 years I didn't sell over 50 listings. And that was my first year and the first year I moved up here to Prescott. Those are the only 2 that I haven't sold over 50.
Yeah. I did not know that. So very consistent. So we want to learn a lot of what is your secret to keep your business going. So you mentioned the story about moving up to Prescott and starting over. And that is a fabulous story. Can you share just a little bit of what happened and what was going on?
Yeah, that was really a faith move, frankly.
Okay.
Logistically, there's really no reason why I should move. I had a strong business down in the Phoenix market, East Mesa area. Consistently selling again between 60 and 80 properties a year, and things were going really well. And initially, about a year prior, Phoenix is hot. I mean, 115 hot, and it just fries your brain in the summers. And so, about a year prior to me moving up here, I was just so hot. My sister-in-law said, hey, why don't you just go up to Prescott? And I didn't even know where Prescott, Arizona was. And I was like, what? And so I looked it up and we went up there. And I remember waking up, and this was in August. And I woke up in the morning at 6:30, went out on the balcony. And I was like, oh, wow, I can breathe. It's like in the 60s, because usually in Phoenix, it's in the 90s in the morning, and then it goes to 115. And I was like, oh, this is great. And I said to my wife, I was like, we got to get a cabin up here, second home, and she didn't like the Prescott. She didn't have a good feeling about it initially. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. But I was like, I'm still going to get on the MLS up there. I'm going to get on the board and I'm going to watch the market. A year passes and the market went down about 5%. And I'm thinking, 5%, it's on sale. Real estate never goes down, right? This was in 2007.
Yeah.
And so my wife was really into the green thing and efficient houses. And there's this one house that came up in a little town called Chino Valley, which is north of Prescott. And it fit all of the hot buttons for her. And it was my birthday in 07. And I said, honey, all I want for my birthday is just go up and check out this house. It could be a good second house. It's cheap. It has all the stuff you like, maybe. And she's like, okay, we'll go up there. So we start coming up the hill. We go over the ride. There's like a little ridge that goes up into Chino Valley. And Chino Valley, just so you know, is very rural. Acreage, flat prairie land, It's not like Prescott has pine trees and rocks and boulders and it's pretty and it's charming. Chino, frankly, is kind of boring. And so we come up over this rise and start coming into Chino, and my wife goes, oh, I like this place. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
Did I miss something here? This is ugly. So we check out the house. She's like, yeah, this is a good place. And so we stayed there for church on Sunday just to see if our kids, if they'd like it or whatever. And I really, frankly, wasn't that impressed. I was like, it's okay. Church is church, it's good. We walk out the church and my wife goes, yep, that's it. We're moving. And I went, great, second home. She said, nope, you need to move here. It's where you need to raise your kids. And I'm like, what? I said, did I miss something here? Yeah.
She
Again,
told
my
you to
wife has
sell,
the
and now she told
inspiration.
you to move.
And I was like, did I miss the angel at church? Did I see something? I'm like, I'm not starting over. Are you crazy? I've been in the business, what was it at that time? 12 years or so, 13 years. I says, I've got a business established. I said, coming up here would be disastrous. I said, I'd have to start from scratch again. We don't know one person up here. This is crazy. And she's like, nope, this is where we need to raise our kids. And this is about 14 years ago, 15 years ago. And so, and I was like, no, I just wouldn't even open my mind. And I said, second home. We can go up there in the summers, when it's hot. We don't do a lot of business in the summer anyway. I could work 2 days a week in the summer, but I'm not moving. And she says, you take it up with the Lord. And I'm like, fine. So I pray to the Lord, and the Lord says, yep, need to move. And the house we thought that we liked sold immediately. So we're like,
Okay.
whatever. So we invested time into it, found a house that worked, and we bought the house. And right after we bought the house, the market in Phoenix just took a nosedive. My house lost $100,000 in value in 6 months.
Wow.
But because I had bought a house up there, I was committed.
Yeah.
Had I just rented first, I honestly don't think my faith would have been strong enough to leave it all and go up into the mountains, into the valley of the shadow of death, So, and fear no evil. So we move up there. I sold my house for way less than I thought, went back in debt again, which I didn't like, but I did have savings, So I was like, we better, instead of just having everything paid off, I better put something in the kitty so I have something to live off of. And so we moved up here. So do you want me to continue with the story on that one, or?
Yes, because it's building to what I remember when you and I spoke about 3 years ago. That was the most amazing story. And I want to share this. Let me pause for just a moment. We're moving right now into a difficult real estate time for a lot of people.
We are.
Because it's a huge shift. For those who've gone through shifts, it's like, okay, been there, done that. But there's a lot of uncertainty, and where you're just about to talk about, there's a lot of uncertainty going on at this time in your life. And I just want to ask, as you share this part of the story, that you share your concerns moving into the uncertainties, but also how do you have the confidence to keep moving forward? And I'm sure it's going to come out naturally, but I want to make sure you talk on that.
I will. I want to tell you 3 things my dad told me when I got into real estate. He said, son, always remember 3 things, and you'll always be successful in real estate. I said, what's that, Dad? He says, number 1, keep the Sabbath day holy. Number 2, he said, always pay a full tithe. And number 3, when things get really tough, pay extra love offerings and you'll be blessed. And so I've always followed that. I try my best not to do any work at all on Sunday. I might check a text or so, but I don't go on appointments. I won't take a buyer out. I don't care what's going on, because I think by honoring the Lord's day, it connects us with the Lord, and there's promises associated with in the Old Testament. If you study that carefully, the Lord says, if you honor and keep my Sabbath days, you shall be blessed and you shall be prospered. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And so I took that one to the bank. But also, I know that God is faithful, and you've got to have confidence in your answers to know that everything's going to work out.
Yeah.
So, for example, when I first moved up here, I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any business going on. I remember moving up here from the Valley and talking to other realtors, and how many deals do you do here? Oh, 10 or 12. He says, how many do you do here? I said, it's like 50. He's like, oh, you won't do 50 up here. That's not going to happen. Da, 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 da. And I remember coming into my office, and there was like 30, 40 agents, and I talked to the manager, and he said, so what are you used to? I said, I used to do about 50 to 70 a deal in a year. He's like, oh, nobody does that here. And I'm like, we'll see, And so I'd been here like 8 months, and, actually the first couple months, I got to tell you this one again. I'm a proud person. I'm going to admit that, but the Lord's still able to work with me. He's patient. He's gentle.
Yes.
But I was going to change companies because I was with Coldwell Banker. I've been with them the whole time. I've been with them now 27 years.
Wow.
And when I moved up here, they wanted to change my commission split. And I was at the top. I was like one of 5 in the entire company that had the highest commission split because of my production.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what are you talking about? He says, well, you're a new market and it's not the same grandfathered thing. And I was like, you guys, I was not happy. And my pride was hurt, frankly. And so I was going to change companies. And I had looked at this other company and it was closer to my house. And I looked at everything logically. It was A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I should move. A, B, I should stay. And so I was pretty determined I was going to change companies. I mean, I had already made up my mind. And I said, well, before you ever make a big decision, I should take it to the Lord. So I knelt down. I said, okay, Lord, I'm going to change companies to this other company. What do you say? No. And it was a very clear, like in my mind, clear no. And I was like, what? No, that can't be right. So I go to my wife and I'm like, I'm going to change companies to this. What do you think? Yeah, I think you should change. So I just prayed about it and got a no. She's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And I said, no, it doesn't make any sense. I said, I'll pray again. Okay, Lord, maybe you didn't understand me. A, B, C, D, F, G, A, B. No. I'm like, that can't be right. So I went to the Lord one more time. I won't ask more than 3 times. 3 times the max,
Mm-hmm.
Ask one more time. The Lord very clearly says, no, don't change. And I'm like, okay, I'll stay where I'm at. Now, I've got to preface this with one thing. I had been there about 5 to 6 months, and I was in a scout group that I was a leader, and I was with another scoutmaster, and we're driving. I said, so how much have you made since you've been here? I says, I don't think I had 1 closing yet, maybe 1 in 6 months. It was really rough, And he said, well, aren't you worried about providing for your family, and aren't you worried it's going to work out? And I says, you know what? I said, I'm not. And he says, how are you not worried? I says, I'm actually excited. And he says, why are you excited? You're crazy. And I said,
I understand. Yeah.
Because I just know something good's going to happen. I can just feel it. And it was about the same time that it was either shortly after that I got the no answer. And 3 weeks after I got the no answer to stay where I was at in Coldwell Banker, I got a call from the head of relocation for the state of Arizona, who I knew well because I'd done relocation down in the valley and have lots of experience. I'd closed probably at this time somewhere to the tune of 800 to 1,000 deals. Not quite, probably 800 deals at the time. And she calls me up and she goes, hey, I don't know if you'd be interested, but Coldwell Banker just landed a big national program with doing bank owns with a big bunch of banks. I was interested if you'd be interested in doing the bank owns. It'd be a lot of work, and it'd be the full relocation package with BMAs and everything. It's going to be a lot more work. Would you be interested? And I said, you bet, sign me up. I'll be doing it. I said, be happy to do it. She's, it's not full commission. You're going to be having more work. And I was like, I know, but I'm good. I'd love to do it because I had seen the market changing and I knew that's the direction it was going. Right. And before that time, I was trying to figure out a way to get involved with the bank owned. And so I went in the office for the meeting and I said, just so you know, I'm getting all the bank owns now. And everybody in the office laughed at me. This was in 2008 now. 2008, okay. About July, August. They all laughed at me and they said, you're crazy. I said, you're going to tell all the bank owners, that's crazy. You're not going to make any money off them and all the work. You're nuts. And I looked at all of them and I said, I'm crazy like a fox. I said, 1 year from this day, you'll all look at me and wish you're in my shoes. Within 1 year of that happening, I was doing 50% of the entire office's business.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm the only reason why the office, my manager came to me a couple years afterwards and said, you realize you're the only reason why this office stayed open. If it wasn't for you moving up here, this office would have closed down because we wouldn't have been profitable.
Wow.
So, the Lord blessed me. He provided. And I've been blessed ever since. And, I'm still a top producer, top 10 in all of Arizona for the Coldwell Banker. And it's all the Lord. He provides. He opens a way, and
if you want more listings, we guarantee them an agent dominator. Whether you're marketing to a geographic farm, past clients and sphere of influence, a niche market, or even commercial property owners, Our fully customized postcards produce up to 10 times more results than standard real estate postcards, and we guarantee your listings or your money back. So visit us at agentdominator.com to learn more. And now, back to the podcast.
If I can tell you one more story for those who are starting out,
Yeah.
you know, so my first 9 months in real estate, when I got back into it in 95, I think it was. Yeah. I hadn't made a dime. I hadn't got a single sale. I'd worked my tail off, done the right things, but I didn't have a single closing. And then the way opened up for us to move to Arizona. And we really didn't have the money. I was going to come and join my mother-in-law. She had been in real estate as well. And I prayed, and the Lord said, yeah, that's what I needed to happen. In a matter of 3 weeks, I made $50,000
Wow.
in 3 weeks.
What happened?
From nothing to listings, to double ending all the listings, to getting buyers in a contest and closed, all before we moved. And I didn't tell a single soul I was moving. I closed them all up, had everything tied up in a bow. I said, okay, I'm moving in 2 days. In 2 days? I said, yeah, we're ready to go to Arizona. So the Lord opens ways in miraculous ways. And we just need to be grateful, and we do. It's not all been easy. It does take a lot of faith, and there's been some nail biter experiences, where you wonder, but he always provides, and he's faithful when we are.
So I was going to ask a question, but I don't think this question has much merit, but it might. The question it's one of my standard questions. Everyone's figuring out, how do you get more sales? Because you're in a hunter business. What have you found to work best to get more sales? And I think I know the answer. So I may ask for, what's your number one? Probably the Lord. And what's your number two?
The number one is the Lord. He really is the provider of all good things, but we're expected to do our part.
That's true.
I spend a lot on marketing. A lot of agents don't. Real estate works when you do. And there's 2 ways you can work real estate. If you don't have any money to spend on marketing, I knocked doors for the longest time when I first started real estate. And I did a little flyer for the neighborhood that I became an expert in a neighborhood. And I would knock those doors in that neighborhood and just let them know that I knew what was going on in that neighborhood. Every time I knocked doors, I always got something. Not from knocking the doors, though. That's the point that's important.
Okay.
When you set your mind in the position to receive, you're able to receive what's coming to you. Maybe you're sharper on the phone. Maybe you're better at picking up that buyer. You get that one lead call. You do floor, and the Lord sends you somebody that you answer the right questions, and you pick them up as a buyer that's ready, willing, and able. But I've always done that, and then you can also cold call. I hate cold calling. Hate it, but I don't do that anymore. And so instead of doing the other stuff to go find and search, I do a lot of marketing with my listings, which in reality markets me and helps people understand, wow, real estate's all about perception. If people perceive that you're huge and you're big and you do a lot of business, you're huge and you're big and you do a lot of business. And that's what the marketing accomplishes, So
tell me what's the number one, or maybe the number one and number two activities that you do? How do you market? You mentioned you market in your listings. What are you doing that has been consistent that you keep doing because it keeps working?
It depends on your market what you should do. Okay. Each market's a little bit different. Like in my market, I used to do magazine advertisements when I was down in Mesa, and I had kind of given up on it when I first moved up here. And then I started up again. Coldwell Banker has a piece called The View Magazine, which is nice, full color. And I advertised in that, and I got so many calls. I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep doing that. And so I've done magazine ads up here, which the purpose is twofold with the magazine ad. Number one, it's to pick up buyers, which sometimes happens. but not always. But number two, it does market your listings because we have a older population up here in Prescott. We're in the top 10 areas to retire in America.
Okay.
And so people come into town and they open up a magazine, they look at it, and you'll pick up a buyer, but they also sometimes come here with the idea of buying something, and they'll see that property and they'll go, oh, what about this one? That they might not have showed up on their MLS search with another realtor. And so your listings get more showings. Every time my magazines come up, I always see my listings spike on showings every time. And then the third big reason, so I continue to do magazine ads even in the hot market when they were selling in a day, because two things. Number one, you had things fall out, and about the time they fell out, it would hit the market with the magazine. I remember one property I sold for $10,000 over asking the first time. It had fallen out. When it came back on the market, my magazine came out and I sold $50,000 the second time, over asking. And I use that in my listing presentations. But the biggest thing is people that are thinking of selling, do you know where they go to look before they sell?
Where they're going to buy.
They'll pick up a magazine.
Interesting.
And they'll open that magazine, and there I am, first page on every magazine. They go, oh, well, that guy's there. I see his mailers in the neighborhood because I'm doing a farming piece,
Okay.
And I always do just solds. And so people are seeing my name over and over and over again. So when I walk in that door for that listing presentation, they feel like they already know me and they see my stuff all around. There's a belief system of automatic trust that's been built because they see it so much, And I would say 8 out of 10 listing appointments I go on, I'll win, So I don't win them all. Nobody can. But, that's really what helps me get the listings. And then they call me, I do the just solds and other stuff. And so it's just a machine, and put it in the machine and keeps rolling.
So as we move into higher interest rates, lower, much more extended days on market, lower sales prices, definitely not selling over list as much, all these different things.
Yeah.
What's the biggest challenge in your business right now, and how are you tackling it?
The biggest challenge you have right now in our market is you've got to convince people to not chase the marble down the hill. What that means is in a declining market, when you're looking at comparables, you're looking in the rearview mirror. Okay. So newer agents can fall prey to saying, well, I had an agent, he said it's worth $750. And I said, well, yeah, that was 6 months ago. That was March, April, May, and we're not in March, April, May. You've got to look at 2 months, and then you really got to look at the pendings, what's under contract, because that tells you what's actually selling. I said, what they sold for before is not what they're going to sell for now. I said, yeah, I can get it appraised for $750 all day long, but it's not going to sell for $750. I said, your market's now at $699. And to help them understand where the market is, I said, perfect example. In March of this year, I listed a house for $999. It was $1 million. And there was 6 houses on the market total in a large area. That was it. Sold full price, sold in a weekend. It was awesome. 6 weeks later, same market, similar house, 26 homes on the market. And we priced it similar, couldn't get it sold. And got him to come down, finally got it sold, right? But it's always better now that it's entrenched and you see this happening. Mm-hmm. If the marble's here, you got to price it right here so that you catch it. You got to price yourself so you're the next one to sell, and you'll always make more money as the seller or lose less money, however you want to look at it. Gotcha. Reality is this, and this is my take on the market. In 2019, me and the other top producers, we always talk to each other. We all saw it. We saw that it was flat. It was getting to be flat, and we thought it would just stagnate for a while. And then COVID hit, and we jumped 60% from 2019. All that 60% is fluff. It really wasn't real appreciation. People don't want to hear this, but I think we can lose all of that 60% and then some, and then we'll shoot back up again. Because it's just going to be the fear of missing out, But I'm not going to buy now because interest rates are going up, and why would I buy now? Prices are going down, and then sellers are going to go, oh no, I've got to sell now because I'm going to lose, So I think we'll see another 2008 scenario, but we're not going to see the foreclosures like we did, because people are not going to let their houses go at 3% interest rates when we're going to see interest rates climb to 10%. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
They're going to hold on to that house no matter what, because they won't be able to replace that payment for a rental. They're like, no way. I'll do everything. I'll hawk my phone if I have to make my house payment, but I'm not going to foreclosure.
Yes.
So you're not going to see the foreclosure frenzy like we did last time. My opinion. I might be wrong.
I think you're probably right on that. It's a different type of shift than it was back then, for sure.
Yeah.
Talk to me about balance in your life. You have how many kids?
3.
And ages right now?
24, 21, and 18.
Okay. So then when you moved into Prescott, they were in their teens and maybe
9, 7, and 5.
Wow.
Or 4.
So real estate for a lot of people is a 24/7 business. Sometimes it's only a 60 or 70 hour a week business. And
sometimes only. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I was doing 90s back then.
Well, a friend of mine knows it's only 35 hours a week, and he does as much volume as you do. And I'm thinking,
yeah, I do about 30 hours a week now, frankly, because I've, once you've got to get the soil productive, and then once you do, then there's less work.
Yep. So talk to me about boundaries and balance. You got a thriving business. You're especially with all the REOs that you got as you moved into Prescott. How do you put structure so that you don't lose your family isn't suffering? How do you still be a dad and a husband?
Step 1, marry well.
Okay.
Make sure you have a very patient wife. Step 2, be humble, which I'm not really well. My wife helps me be humble.
Okay.
But I tried, not successfully when I was getting it started. Getting started is tough, but I tried to leave work alone after 6 in the old days. I'm not so good at that now, and it doesn't matter too much. When the kids were younger, it was more important,
Sure.
But try to put your family first, as best you can. There's a balance, and that balancing act is very difficult at times. My kids were involved in scouting at the time. I try to go on every camp out with them, try to take them to their youth activity nights, on Wednesdays, and just be involved in their life. We'd always have dinner together. That was a big thing in my family. We'd always have dinner together. And I think there is sitting down and having dinner as a family is like an anchor.
Yeah, it goes a long way.
I've been blessed with really good kids. I've never had a sleepless night with them. Never had to worry about them getting drugs or alcohol or women or anything like that. They've all been very good kids. And that's mainly because of my wife, frankly. We chose to homeschool all our children. And they've all done very, very well. Don't be afraid to follow your promptings and not worry about what other people think, and it was hard to homeschool. That wasn't popular back then.
Right.
We got a lot of, your kids aren't going to be socialized. Your kids aren't going to do well, and they've all done really well, and they're all awesome kids. They really are.
Most homeschool kids I've met have been the most well-adjusted,
Exactly.
highly self-confident, most socially adept. It's like, it's very good.
And now with everything going on in the public schools, I think there's more motivation than ever to homeschool.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot more about that from those who have the younger children. So I want to come back real quickly. So as we're talking about boundaries, so one of the boundaries, it sounds like, you have your family and you're always mindful. It seems like you were mindful and trying to be sensitive, putting up work at 6, being home for dinner, creating that anchor. You also had the boundary, I want to come back to keeping the Sabbath day holy. By the way, for those who have interest on that, if you search my podcast channel a little bit further back, I did a series on Is the Sabbath for Today? It's a really fascinating understanding and walk through the scriptures and what is the importance of that. By the way, as a trivia, you remember, Peter, when Israel was ransacked, Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar comes in, takes them away, and the Lord, through, I think it's Jeremiah, gives one reason. It may not be the only reason, but it's the only reason we find in the Bible why he did away with Israel and turned them over into exile. Do you remember what that one reason might be?
Probably honoring the Sabbath day is going to
That's
be my
right.
hint. I mean,
It
because
was
the
it.
Lord says
Yeah,
that's one of the few Big Ten commandments
very much.
that comes with a promise. One's
Yeah.
honor your father and your mother, and number two, and that has a blessing associated with it. That one's keep the Sabbath day holy. And if you do this, you shall be blessed, 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 blessed. You know,
Very, very good. And you're right. It was the Sabbath, so that his land can now receive the Sabbaths that they weren't doing. But what's also interesting in that is the Sabbath. The seventh day is the first instance in the Bible where God declares anything holy. It was the number one.
interesting. You're right. I forgot. Yeah, that's a good point.
So as we talk
No.
on the Sabbath, which for us it's Sunday, you and me, I know, but it's not that way for everyone. And how do you manage a business? You've got needs that may come up on a Sabbath, your Sunday.
You know, what I did is, believe it or not, there was a Seventh-day Adventist in my office who believed in keeping the Sabbath day holy. So it made it real easy.
Yep.
I took all her Saturday appointments. She took all my Sundays, and we were good.
I love it. I love it.
We had it covered.
So and I wanted you to share that only because, sometimes we say, am I going to lose business? Well, there's always a creative way around it, but there's always.
I'm going to tell you this.
Yeah.
I had an agent in my office who'd always been a top producer, and this was back in 2012, 13. Her business was suffering really bad. She was struggling. And she said, gosh, what can I do to get more business? And I said, you want the truth? And she says, yeah. I said, stop working on Sunday. She said, I just asked you how I can get more business. I said, exactly, stop working on Sunday. And she says, what do you mean? I said, if you keep the Sabbath day holy, your deals will go smoother, the clients you have will be better, and your life will be much easier. Because if you have a client that refuses to honor your Sabbath day, they're a client you don't want to work with, because that's the kind of client's going to sue you. That's the kind of client's going to be on your back. That's the kind of client that you don't want to work with in the first place. I said, who is going to call their attorney on a Saturday or Sunday? Nobody. Attorneys work Monday through Friday. They're professionals. I'm a professional. I'll give you 6 days a week, because God says labor 6 days, not 5, not 4, not 3. He says labor 6 days shalt thou labor, on the seventh day thou shalt rest. And so I'll give them 6 full days. And on Sunday, you know what? I'm not going to be working. Now, like I said, I'm not perfect. I will answer some texts. I generally don't return any phone calls on Sunday. Tell me to call back on Monday. Every now and again, it's a quick little 5-second text. I should be better. I should repent and go all the way, but I got to repent of that one. But I really believe that the Sabbath day is the Lord's day, which is meant to be spent with your family and your church service and doing the things we should be doing. I think we got to be careful to not draw the Sabbath as a Pharisee or Sadducee, say 15 steps and can only do this much and this much. It's a sign between us and God and our relationship with Him.
Yeah, it's an element of trust and faith.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what I pick up from this conversation with you, Peter. Is just you strike me as one who not only you call yourself a Christian. You love the Lord, but you live it out. You live it out in terms of being willing to do those things that the Lord is directing you on, regardless.
I try.
Right,
nobody's perfect. We all sin. I get that. We all make mistakes.
Yeah,
but I get up every time I fall.
Right. So I'm not calling you perfect on this, because I know you're not perfect. I'm teasing. I'm sure you aren't.
Yeah.
but within there's the element of faith, which is stepping out and trusting the Lord. And with the Sabbath being one of the few of the commandments with a great promise. I love that.
And tithe is another thing with a promise, in my
Yes,
opinion.
it is.
Giving a tithe. And depends on who you talk to, how you give a tithe. A tithe is I think defined by the scriptures as
A tenth.
10% of, after you meet your needs. I mean, but yet the more you give, the more you get. So each person can live their tithe according to what they feel good about. I'm not telling you how to tithe, but I can promise you that God will bless you abundantly if you do those two things, because it shows trust in him.
Yes.
And he rewards gratitude and trust and faithfulness,
That I think that's well spoken. Before we wrap up, I've got one final question. I don't know if there's an answer
Sure.
because I don't know what's in your life. But have you had any struggles that you can share in your life where your relationship with Christ made a really big impact in coming through it? Because there are a lot of people out there that are struggling through things right now, marriage, health, business, all kinds of things. And just want to see if there's anything that comes to mind.
There's a lot of things, actually, but I won't go into specifics.
Yeah, okay.
Because they're a little too personal.
Perfect.
But I can say I've struggled with things in my life, hard things, very hard things. I struggled with depression really bad, starting about probably 13, 14 years ago, for a number of years. That was caused because of things that happened to me in my childhood that I hadn't really remembered, that were affecting me. Abuses that had happened, that happened to me very, very young as a child. And I didn't realize that. And through going to some help and doing some guided imagery, I was able to find out what happened. And Christ was there for me.
Yeah.
And one insight that I gained from that, as the Lord touched me and helped me, is the words the Savior said to me in my mind, I am. And he says, I am always there for my children, in the past, in the present, and in their future, because I am. And the guy that was helping me through this guided imagery was actually a Jew. He was Jewish and knew Hebrew. And I said, he says, oh, that's interesting. You had that epiphany. I said, why is that? He says, do you know what the word Yehovah means in Hebrew? And I said, no, I don't know Hebrew at all. And he says, Ye means the past, Ho means the present, and Va means the future.
Wow.
That's what the word I am comes from, Jehovah. And it just sent chills up my spine. And if there's any message I can give to you today, it is that Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior, and that he is the only way, and he'll never abandon you. There's no trail you can take that's too far from his love, and there's no darkness you can enter that his light can't reach. There's no broken heart he can't mend. My oldest son told me once, as he was studying, he said, Dad, have you ever wondered why Jesus was a carpenter and not a shepherd? He always talks about shepherding and being the good shepherd in the scripture, but why was he a carpenter instead of a shepherd? And I said, never thought about it. What do you think, son? He says, first of all, it put him in contact with people. Shepherds are out in the field with no one. Number two, his goal and mission in life was to take something broken and to make it whole, or to take something crude and rough and make it smooth and beautiful. And I went, that is my Lord. That's my Savior. He takes a rough stone like me, who's not perfect, who sins like everybody else, who needs the grace of Jesus Christ every day, and makes me whole and forgives my sins and helps me be the son he wants me to be, to lift and help others, which I need to do much more. So that's my testimony of Christ. And he is the way, the truth, and the life. And, real estate works when you do, but it works 10 times better when you have the best teammate partner in the world, and that's the Lord Jesus Christ. So anyway.
Wow. That is a great message to end on. I don't think it can get better. Thank you for sharing that.
You bet.
So that's it. As we wrap up, just a reminder, if you aren't subscribing to our podcast, please do. If you're listening to this online, if you have a mobile phone, I know you do, just simply pull up your podcast player. If you're on Apple, it's called Apple Podcasts. It's already downloaded. If you're not on Apple, go to your Play Store and you can download any podcast player and just search for Get Sellers Calling You and subscribe. You'll get more of these and some great Bible teaching that I do. And don't forget, join our Facebook group, Get Sellers Calling You, if you desire. And thanks for allowing us to serve you. And Peter, thank you very much for
Thanks, Beatty, for your time
out
and
sharing.
thanks for the call. Appreciate the blessing.
Have a blessed day, everyone.
You too. God bless.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please do two things. Number one, please share this on social media so other people can enjoy it. And number two, if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please subscribe to either our YouTube channel or our podcast audio channel that you'll find on any audio player with your mobile phone. And then that way you won't miss another episode. Also, if you want help generating listings, please visit our website at agentdominator.com, where we guarantee them or give your money back. Thanks again for listening to the Get Sellers Calling You podcast, and have a very blessed day.